Well, for the first time in 2024, your Las Vegas Raiders are in the win column. Big W for the silver and black. Eddie Paskal hanging out in the fifth quarter, presented by Twitch with my man Brice Butler. Duffel making his 2024 debut with Silver and Black Productions. And Brice, let's begin here, right? We were talking before we started rolling. A complete team effort, a complete team win today for Antonio Pierce and the boys. Where should we even begin? Let us begin with the defense, kind of what has been the calling card of this team since Antonio Pierce took over. I mean, man, Max Crosby, Robert Spillane, the big plays when this team needed the most. I mean, what can you say about what the guys are doing on that side of the football?
They're doing what they need to do. Obviously we spoke about, it was a total team effort. I will say the big dogs on defense are definitely leading the way for the rest of the team. Obviously we saw a big critical point in the game when Minshew threw a pick. It was like a bad throw. I think he tried to throw it to Brock Bowers. And as he was coming off the field, Max Crosby grabs him. And basically you could tell he was like, yo, I got you. We'll get the ball back. Keep your head up. We got you. Like, stay in the game. We need you to win this game. And I think, as a player, seeing that, you have the quarterback on your defense, right? Going to the quarterback of the team and telling him, like, look, we got you. Keep your head up. We can win this game, but we need you to win the game. Don't drop your head. We got you. That was huge, man. So the defense, I feel like right now, they're definitely leading our team in the right direction. And just like AP said, once the two other phases get there, if we can get that consistently from first quarter to the fourth quarter, our team will be tough to handle.
Well, let's just start with Max's stat line, Duffel. Max finishes his day. Take a deep breath and sit down because it's going to be a minute. Two sacks. Two sacks, six tackles, two quarterback hits, four tackles for loss, and a pass defense. And we talk about it, man, showing up in the biggest moments. And I'm glad you brought up that moment between him and Minshew, second quarter when Gardner throws that interception. Like, I think that's kind of where we see. I don't want to say the maturation of Max, but the next step for Max, because Max talked about it all last year, like, and we've talked about this a bunch. Like, Max is now at the point in his career where he's largely considered, and for good reason, one of the best players in the NFL. Not one of the best defensive players, one of the best players in the NFL. And he talked about last year, he's like, yo, my next level, my next job is to start bringing guys with me. You look at what he did for this defense in 2023, he brought that defense with him. And then today, big moment. Offense is struggling early, having a hard time kind of finding their rhythm. And he goes over to the quarterback and says, dog, we are good. Like, to your point, don't trip. We're going to need you. And the Raiders certainly did need Gardner Minshew later on Sunday afternoon in Baltimore. But I want to, like, kind of hit on this real quick before we talk about that offense, Brice. This seemed like one of those games, and I don't want to put like too much stock into, this is a must win or this is such a tone setting win, et cetera, et cetera. It's week 2, right? Like, it's September 15th. We haven't even, we were talking about the weather has just started to change in Vegas. Like, we are a long time away from fall and winter football. But like, there's a big difference between 1-1 and 0-2. And I think that if you're the national pundits, and we kind of saw this, right, is that the Raiders go into today heavy underdogs, right? And you look at it just kind of from the outset, right? The Ravens, a really good football team who feel like they should have won to kick off the year, going home for their home opener. Raiders traveling east. We know how hard that is for teams going east from the West Coast. And then down in the fourth quarter, and here's a stat for you, Brice. The last time the Raiders won a game where they trailed by 10 plus points in the fourth quarter was September 11th, 2016 in New Orleans. They were down 24-13 and ended up winning 35-34. But just in terms of kind of tone setting, right? Like, what does it say about this team that they were able to get punched in the mouth? It wasn't very pretty through 30 minutes, and it really wasn't very pretty through 45 minutes, but they somehow figured out a way to get a finish to this game with a W.
Man, I mean, it means a lot. I think you're talking about the 2015 team when Crabtree and Coop were there. Yeah,
Yep,
I wasn't
16,
on
yep,
that team, but
16.
yeah, 16. I'm sorry. I remember seeing that win. I think Crab had like the fade or whatever to win the game. But anywho, like, my first 2 years at Oakland, we didn't win too many games. We started one season, I think, 0-10.
Mm-hmm.
So even though, yes, it was the second week of the season, you never want to have like doubt creep in, because doubt can really set forest fires for teams, especially teams that feel like they have to get over the hump, right? A team like the Baltimore Ravens, a team that like, you win, you expect to win 11, 12 games. Those teams might get out of that. Like, oh, we're 0-2, like, but we know who we are, like we can make it happen. But when you're a team that last year, won 6 or 7 games, and then you start off 0-2, some of that, oh, here we go again, starts to set in. And you get a couple guys over here to think that way. You get a couple guys over here to think that way. Now, before you even know it, you're 1-5, 1-6, and you feel like at that point the season is over. You get what I'm saying? So even though like yes, like this week is not a must win, it was a must win because now instead of it being like 2 game losing streak, we're 1-1. We're 1 game winning streak right now. We didn't lose that game. We played a team that we were 10-point underdogs to. Really disrespectful, just like AP said. I would have felt disrespected too if I heard that in the week, leading up into a game. But now we got that win versus a playoff team, versus a Lamar Jackson, a stacked offense, a lot of good players over there. And we can go win that game and be down in the fourth quarter and shut them out in the fourth quarter. We scored 13 points and win that game. That is nothing but a whole bunch of confidence that gets basically like win, just goes through that locker room through every player. Like, hey, we can beat any team out there.
I mean,
We can do it.
I mean, what a difference 12 minutes make, right, Brice? I mean, with 12 minutes and 11 seconds left in the game, right? So 12-11 left in the fourth quarter. Ravens are up 23-13, right? And if
Yeah.
you're sitting there, and look, we can be honest, like, this is an offense that through 3 quarters really struggled, looked out of sync. There was not a lot of cohesion to what we were doing. And then give credit to Luke Getsy, give credit to Gardner Minshew, because they kind of figured it out, right? They cracked the code a little bit as we look at Gardner, as Gardner finishes his day. A very efficient 30 of 38, 276, 1 touchdown, the aforementioned interception. But it felt like he figured out kind of the best way to attack this Ravens defense. And stop me if you're shocked, Brice, but 2 of the keys to doing that are feeding Devante and feeding Brock Bowers.
100%. We were texting during the game, and I literally was like, hey, I mean, 17 and 89 need to touch the ball. I don't care if they're even making catches. Like, you need to throw them the ball because we saw towards the end of the game, Devante got 2 DPIs that were critical DPIs that put points on the board for us. So, just like you said, man, I don't know what was going on. Kyle Van Noy was looking like he was a rookie again. I think we gave up 5 sacks. So in the first, 2 to 3 quarters, seemed like Minshew was holding the ball a little bit too long. We couldn't get the running game going at all. So that's something that obviously we have to address. We have to be able to basically run the line of scrimmage, and I don't think we're there yet. But AP addressed it, so I know that's something that they're focusing on. But man, at the end of the day, 17-89. If you can get it to Devante, you can get it to Brock Bowers. Great things can happen. And Brock, obviously, he's a rookie. He's proven the first 2 weeks, you throw him the ball, he will make plays just like he did as he was the Georgia Bulldog.
We're going to come back to the running game here in just a sec, Brice, because as you mentioned, right, like if you're looking at kind of the box score from this game, you're very confused as to how the Raiders won this game, getting outscored by over 120 yards on the ground. But like shifting back to the rookie from Georgia for a second, like again, not to be like too hyperbolic and not to like put too much on one game, but really through 2 games now, like Bowers looks, I think the best way I can describe it, Bryce, is he looks as advertised, right? Like he looks like everything that we were expecting him to look like. He finishes today 9 catches on 9 targets, 98 yards. Like, how hard is that? And obviously I know you didn't play tight end, but like in terms of a young guy playing tight end, how hard is it to make that adjustment from college to the NFL to be productive day one? Because we hear all the time about how tight end in particular is one of those positions on the football field where there is a big learning curve for those dudes coming out of college.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but he's making it look easy. Obviously, he's in a position, he was the best tight end in college. He got drafted first round. So he's in a position where opportunities are going to be there, right? But just because the opportunity is there doesn't mean the results are going to be there. And the first 2 weeks, I mean, he's out there looking like a man amongst boys. He's out there playing like he was playing against Ole Miss, playing against South Carolina. It doesn't look any different to him. And I would say, some of that has to do with the credit of how great the SEC conference is. There's a lot of guys that translate from that conference to the NFL. So for him, he might not even feel like there's that much of a difference. I remember for me, I know I left San Diego State, but I went to USC, you know what I'm saying, for my first 4 years. And when I got to Oakland as a rookie, as in training camp, I didn't feel like there was much of a big difference between the types of players I had to deal with at USC and in training camp. So Brock, obviously, it looks like he feels the same way, and he's making it look easy. And I hope that, obviously this season is much longer than the college season. Hopefully he's taking care of his body. He's eating right. He's going to bed on time. Because as the season progresses, he's going to get a lot more toll on that body as he's had more than he's had in college. So, I mean, the only thing that I think that can stop him is maybe just, staying healthy.
For an offense in general, right? Especially an offense like Luke Getsy's, where you have a quarterback like Gardner Minshew, he was so good off script, right? We see kind of some of that Minshew magic a little bit today. But
Yeah.
like when you have a tight end like Brock Bowers, and candidly, when you have two tight ends like him and Michael Mayer, like what does that do for the offense as a whole when you feel really good about, hey, if there's nothing there, if I'm not seeing anything down the field, I do have the ability to get the ball maybe a little closer to the line of scrimmage to two guys that are exciting, dynamic, big, strong players.
Yeah, I mean, tight ends are the quarterback's best friend. I mean, if you are an outside receiver threat like a Devante or, anybody that's on the outside, sometimes having a great tight end could, make you a little frustrated, because you could be on the outside running deep daggers, deep corners, go balls, but that tight end in the middle of the field has a middle hook that's 8 yards in front of the QB, center of the face. It's an easy throw, easy pitch and catch. They're running options and choice routes. So, typically, great quarterbacks always have a tight end that they can count on. And, you have two guys. You got a first round guy on Bowers, you got a second round guy on Mayers, so those guys will definitely be, key factors, I think, in the success in the, Raiders offense because of that simple fact. If they're closer to the quarterback, the throws aren't as long. You don't really have to throw them the ball outside the numbers. They're typically between the hashes, and they're quarterback's best friend, man. So as you saw today, there's a lot of 12 personnel, a lot of 13 personnel. So the offensive staff definitely sees that as a factor for that offense to be successful.
And it would also help when you have one of the best wide receivers in football in Devante Adams, who goes out there, does his thing. He finishes the day, Duffel, 9 catches, 110 yards, a touchdown, and in the process, tallies his 96th career receiving touchdown, tying him with Mike Evans for 12th all-time in NFL history. We can talk about the greatness of Devante, the touchdowns, the big plays, et cetera, but the one play that I want to get your 2 cents on is the one along the sideline, right? We saw it during the game. We were talking about it before it started rolling. Our man goes completely horizontal, right? Toe taps, holds on to the possession of the football. Like, kind of just make me a little bit smarter. Like, one, how do you do that just in terms of like a step by step? And like, how hard is that to do in a big moment when your team absolutely needs it?
I would say 75% of that is God given. 25% of it is taught and learned. And what I mean by that is that ball was like out of bounds, right? Devontae has the length to be able to stretch out like that and make that catch. Guy's a little shorter, he might not be able to do that. And then just Devontae is, in my opinion, he's the best receiver in the league until he leaves. Like, there's nobody better than him. You just threw out some stats. He made that look effortless, dog. Like, I made some great catches in my career, but like I watched that and I was like, God dang, that was a great catch, man. Like, just to be fully extended, toes on the ground, body extended, stretched out, didn't pull a hamstring, didn't pull his back. He makes that catch and made it look effortless, dog. Like, I mean, that just shows you his greatness. Like, I can't even really talk about it because like those are just plays that you make. He might not even be able to talk about it. You just get it done and, go back in the huddle for the next play.
I'm just curious too, like when the guys come in tomorrow to like break down film, like what's the receiver room like when that one comes up? Like, do they just say, Devante doing Devante and click on to the next, or like?
You know what? It's funny. In the team meeting, when they show that in the team meeting, everybody gonna turn around and look at him. Depending on where he sits, you know what I mean? They're gonna give him that look like, And he gonna do a little like, you know what I'm saying? Like one of those, like, you know what time it is, man. You know what I'm saying? So nah, like everybody, like, everybody respects plays like that. It doesn't matter who you are. Even Max Crosby, he gonna turn around and look at Taylor like, that's twin right there. You know what I'm saying? Making big plays. So yeah, like everybody, I'm sure after the play, after that drive was over, they were like, bro, like that play was crazy. And he's like, you know what I do? I'm divine, I'm 1-7. I'm Tay Adams, baby. We've been doing this since East Palo Alto days. Feel me?
It's interesting too, man, because we also saw the greatness of Devante today on full display, but then we also saw one of those. I don't know the last time we saw Devante drop a ball, an uncontested ball in space like that. Like I'm like not even trying to be like facetious here. Like I really don't remember the last time we saw that. How hard is it? And that's a big moment in the game too, right, Brice? So like, how hard is it as a receiver, especially a great one like Devontae, to kind of like compartmentalize that a little bit? Be like, hey man, that's the worst drop I've had in a long time, but hey, we got to go on to the next and keep rocking.
It's really just mental fortitude. That's all it comes down to. When you're a hands catcher like Devontae is, and some other guys like I was back in the day, you know that sometimes your hands and your eyes might fail you. You rely on your eyes and your hands to catch the ball most of the time, and sometimes you might know you're open. You just kind of throw your hands in the spot because you got a whole bunch of yak, probably got a touchdown, and you just didn't focus up the way you typically focus up on a play like that, and he didn't make it. But it's fine. A guy like him, he knows the ball's coming back to him probably the next play. So he can't dwell on it too long. A guy like me, who that might have been my only target in the game, I might be dwelling on that thing like, dang, that might have been my only opportunity. But a guy like Devontae, you're gonna get targets, it. And obviously, I think a couple plays later, they went right back to him, and he got a big DPI call for him in our favor, and it basically helped us get back in the ball game, really. So you can't think about it too long. I played with Larry Fitzgerald, and when we would go back in meetings, if he dropped a pass, he would not watch himself drop the pass. Like when that play come up, he would drop his head, and then you'd be like, "What are you doing?" And he'll say like, "I don't drop passes." And like that was him telling himself like, "I don't drop passes." I know we make mistakes, we're not perfect. I don't drop passes. I can't see myself drop passes. I won't allow that to manifest and fester in my brain. So I'm sure Devontae's doing the same thing.
It's interesting too. Like I always find it such a unique. Like you're talking about Larry Fitz, like how guys do kind of bounce back because there's not like a one size fits all for how guys respond to things. And some guys are like, "Hey, I want to see it 100 times. I want to go frame by frame by frame and see what happens." There's other guys, like you
Right.
said, like Larry, who said, "Like, look, doesn't exist. Gone in the past. I do not drop passes." So really interesting to see how guys kind of attack that. But all right, Duffel, we talked about some of the good on the offense, right? We talked about that incredible 12 minutes at the end, essentially willed this team back from the brink, secured their first W of 2024. But the flip side of that is it's now
Mm-hmm.
been of 2 games. We look at today in particular. The Raiders have not been able to efficiently run the football. I look at the numbers from today. They ran the ball 17 times, 27 yards. Perhaps most glaring, the longest run of the day was 8 yards. Like I
Mm-hmm.
understand that there was some shifting along the offensive line. We started the day with Whitehair in at left guard. Andres Pete's come in. We go back to Cody Whitehair. But like in a kind of big picture view, like why have the Raiders struggled in the early goings? Admittedly, right? We were talking about earlier. This is week 2. We are not at week 9, week 10. In the early goings, why have they struggled so much to find any type of continuity on the ground?
It's not rocket science, man, but sometimes it can be. The offensive line, those 5 guys up front, everything has to be clicking. Like those guys, as far as like being a pact, like being a cohesive unit, I would say those 5 guys on the team have the biggest responsibility. Um, like in the receiver group, like, yeah, I might not run my routes great all game, right? But then like Devontae can have a good game, or like Brock Bowers can have a good game, and it's fine, right? But with the offensive line or the defensive backs, a defensive back can give up a touchdown, but like the other 2 guys can have a pick a piece, right? And then now we have 2 takeaways on the defensive side. But when it comes to the offensive line, like all 5 of those guys have to work in unison for things to work. And obviously not knowing what was going on in training camp, who was able to practice, who wasn't. We have Coach Pierce taking a guy out, like you said, in the first quarter, after the first drive,
Mm-hmm.
actually taking him out and then switching it later. That to me shows me that the cohesiveness is probably not there. And he also mentioned in the game there was some communication errors going on too. So now, like it's figuring out with the new quarterback in Minshew, the center, the tackle, like okay, are we getting the fan protection calls? Are we rolling it over here? Like, are we calling? Who's making those calls? Who's supposed to make those calls? And then when we make those calls, is it getting relayed and are people digesting that properly? Because I'm watching the game and I think it was the second sack of the game. 99 basically came
Yeah.
scot free
Yeah.
on the head. And so when I see that, it might not be the tackle's fault, but are we talking to the running back to make sure? I know we're talking about the run game, but are we talking about the running back to make sure he can get a chip on that defensive end before he goes out into his route? So that's what Antonio Pierce, when he's talking about the communication of what we have to do blocking, that all has to be there. Now, obviously, I never played offensive line. Like I'm a skinny guy, I play receiver. But being in those meetings in the past, the offensive line has to be 100% certain that they're all doing the same thing at the same time, or you get guys coming through scot free, or you get the times where there's a whole bunch of TFLs because the running backs can't get to the line of scrimmage and bust through. And so I'm sure they're going to have to go back to the drawing board. There was a question asked, how do you coach up a win? There's a lot of things that you can coach up and
Mm-hmm.
clean up, even if you're winning, because you're not doing like we said, we were down 23-13 going in the fourth quarter. So obviously there's a lot of room for improvement, Eddie. And I think that when it comes to the offensive line, they just have to be all on the same page. And then I think we'll start and then be a little bit more consistent with the run game. Like, trusting the fact we're going to bust those runs. Obviously, you don't want to get down too soon, too early, or too early, too soon. And then you're going to have to throw the ball more and more and more. So obviously you want to hit teams in the mouth early, be in front of the chains. Don't get in second down and 17 situations, third down and 17 situations early in the game. Score some points, be ahead. You'll be able to run the football.
I mean, to your point too, Brice, like there was a complete lack of balance today, and right, it's a lot easier and fun to talk about this when the team is 1-1 and headed back to Vegas now with the W. But Gardner Minshew throws the ball 38 times. The Raiders run the ball 17 times, right? And
Right,
AP's made it known from the jump, right? Like he wants to be a run first team. He wants to be
right,
balanced. He wants to see that as close to 50-50, if not, slightly leaning to the run game as humanly
right.
possible. But I think for me, like when we hit halftime of this game, I was thinking it reminded me a lot of week 1. Close game, kind of an ugly, gritty, old school type of football game. But where the Chargers kind of pulled ahead a week ago was they adjusted better than the Raiders in the second half. I mean, you look at the numbers for the Chargers in the first half from last week compared to the second half, and it's night and day. Jim Harbaugh and his
Right.
staff adjusted, right? So I was like, okay, what is AP and his staff? What do they learn from the experience a week ago, and how do they adjust going forward in week 2, right? And it took a little bit of time, right? But in that fourth quarter, man, I mean, the Raiders looked more in sync. They looked like they had more of the finishers mentality than the Ravens did. And I think so when we kind of zoom out big picture, and yes, a 26-23 win on the road is huge. I'm not here to dismiss that at all. Going back home now, back-to-back home games, 1-1 is huge. I'm not here to dismiss that. But I think when I zoom out a lot, Brice, like that to me is the big takeaway. Is that the adjustments in the second half worked. And yeah, they might have taken a little bit of time, but we ultimately got there. And I think that is the big, bold, put it on the marquee on the Vegas Strip. That's the takeaway for me from today.
100%. I do not disagree. We always send text during the game, ladies and gentlemen. So if you guys haven't understood now, me and Eddie are texting each other
It's my
during the
guy.
game, talking about the game. So yeah, that's exactly it. Like first half, offensively didn't look great. Went out there second half, and in the first half of the second half, didn't look that great either. But we were actually putting points on the board. And then the fourth quarter came around. It was like I don't know who said what to who, but you could tell there was a difference in the mentality as far as attacking the defense and not allowing the defense to basically set the precedence of what we were going to do. We were downset hike, Devante one-on-one fade ball. Downset hike, get the ball to Brock Bowers. Downset hike, throw it again to Brock Bowers. You know what I'm saying? So we started doing things. We started pushing the envelope of what we wanted to do. And that's, I think, with what you said, that was the difference in what I saw. And if we can continue that going, like pushing our will on our opponents, hey, you're not going to dictate what we do. We're going to dictate what we want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like we're Raiders football, and y'all are going to have to adjust to what we're doing. If they can keep that mind, because that's what we do on defense. We do that on defense. You could tell Lamar Jackson and all those guys and Coach Harbaugh had Max Crosby, Christian, and all those guys in mind when we were playing them this week. But the defense didn't feel anything about us. So if we can let the league be on notice, like, hey, we're going to get the balls to our playmakers, and you're going to have to stop our playmakers in order for you to beat us. I think we'll be a tough team to beat, man.
Just from your experience, Brice, like it felt like something, and I know it's kind of hard to like describe it a little bit, but it felt like it felt different in that fourth quarter, right? It felt like something
Sure.
clicked offensively. Like when you're in the heat of the battle, right? When you're in the huddle, are you guys, are players like cognizant? Can they feel like, okay, like whatever we were trying to figure out the past 3 quarters, like I don't want to say we're there, but like we're a lot closer. Like something kind of makes sense compared to what it did the first part of the game.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, a lot of times it's like drive starters, right? You like say when it was 23-23, when Gardner's going out there, he's telling them, hey, we got them. We've been doing it this last quarter. Let's do it one more time. You know what I'm saying? And guys are like, yep, hell yeah. Like, we got that. Let's go. So there's maybe not as much conversation or communication in the midst of a drive
Mm.
because obviously, you're running back to the huddle, you got 17 seconds left, you're calling the play, trips right, da la blah blah, ready break, and you got to go back. But in the beginning or in a timeout break or whatever, yes, there's communication. You can feel it. It's like, hey, we got them. Like I can see it in the look in their eyes. Like, okay, when this DPI is called on Devante, how the DB looks dejected now. If he wouldn't have felt that way in the second quarter, but it's a fourth quarter. It was a big monumental DPI. Now he feels a little bit more dejected. I can beat him now. You know what I'm saying? Every time you're throwing me the ball in this safety, this tight end safety matchup, I'm beating him every time. I can tell the difference and the look in his eyes when I see him. So yeah, those are definitely things that they're talked about in the huddle and they're talked about on the sideline before you go back out there to play.
Before we get out of here, Duffel, one thing I have to bring up because he deserves all the credit in the world is our guy Daniel Carlson today, man. After missing a field goal last week in Los Angeles, I mean the cash money man comes back bigger and better than ever. He goes 4 for 4 with an extra point, 2 from 50 plus. I mean, for an offense, and we talked about it, right? That for a lot of this game kind of struggled to find its footing. Like, what kind of weapon is it to have a dude like Carlson be like, look, we don't necessarily need to go the length of the field to get points. Like, we need to get a little past midfield, and this dude is going to make sure that we're getting something out of this possession, especially in a game like today where we talk about at halftime, Bryce, it was 9-6, right? Like, neither team was
Yeah.
able to get rocking offensively. So, like, what kind of weapon is it to have a dude like Daniel who can get this team rocking and can put points on the board? It feels like regardless of where they are on the field.
Eddie, it's crazy. I think the NFL game has changed, man. Like when I was a rookie, if you had a guy like Sebastian Janikowski, it was like you had the only weapon in the whole league that can kick something over 50 yards to help you win a game. Now it seems like every week there's guys kicking 55 plus yard field goals, 52 plus yard field goals. Like the new 50, like the new 50 is like the old four. I mean, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if I'm saying it right,
No, I know what
but
you're
it's like the
saying.
50
Yeah,
the
yeah,
old 40. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like now you have to believe that coaches are looking at it that way. If I can just get the ball to the 40-yard line or 38-yard line and give Carson a 52-yard field goal, we have a better chance of him hitting it, especially when, like how we had in the first half, like you said, 9-6. We couldn't really knock it through for 6, right? You have to have a guy that you can rely on in the kicking game. And that today is the reason why the Raiders came home with the victory.
Big time,
100%.
big time, and it was funny too. One of the members of our production staff tweeted me, or excuse me, texted me right after the game, and she goes,
Yeah.
"There's a very real chance that we're gonna have special teams player of the week, defensive player of the week, offensive player of the week, and rookie of the week." Which is nuts to think about. Like, now, look, I would love for the Raiders to sweep the weekly awards. We still got Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and all that. But it just goes to show you how complete of a win this was for the Las Vegas Raiders. How complete of a win it was on the road in a really tough place to play. Again, right? I don't want to kind of blow this out of proportion, but this was a big W, about as big of a W as you can have in mid-September. So an exciting moment now for the Silver and Black, and a great point that this is Antonio Pierce's official first win as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, not the interim head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Well, Duffel, I'm so excited to see you. We're going to see you a lot this year. But you, my friend, are a busy, busy man. It is hard to pin you down. What are you doing? Where can the people find you? I know that you are all in on not only the NFL but college football this year as well.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of stuff. Just getting excited and getting ready for the football season. Been doing a lot of work with Sports Illustrated. Obviously, you guys know they've had a new exodus, new licensing partner coming in and buying up, the rights. So signed over with those guys, and we got a lot of cool things coming. Some feature shows. We do some college football stuff. I might do an NFL football show with them as well, but we haven't got to that point yet. Would be excited to do so, but we are in the fifth quarter with my guy Eddie P. So that's what we're doing right now. So yeah, I just been grinding. I mean, obviously, y'all can check me on the Instagram and the X and on YouTube at Brice_Butler. Just trying to give some fun content, which is like kind of like golf stuff, but we actually have football content coming out soon. So I'm excited, man. We're getting it. We're getting it.
And shameless plug on my part, and I know that I am admittedly too close to the fire, but I am a firm believer that Brice is one of the best out there at kind of towing that line between being entertaining, being really fun, being really engaging, while also providing good X's and O's kind of analysis as well. Duffel, you are our guy. It is great to see you in this new setup in 2024 as well. We have the rich mahogany behind you. You're looking powerful. You got your Rick Ross on. We just need to give you one of those AP Victory cigars for next time we'll have you rocking. But it was a great day for the Silver and Black. It was a great day because Brice Butler was here. The Raiders are 1-1, headed home now for back-to-back home games at Allegiant Stadium. So we will see you guys next week following the Raiders home opener for the fifth quarter presented by Twitch.